Hello all and welcome back to the channel, and thank you for watching if you're here for the first time. So tonight I'm going to look at three albums that I consider three of my favourites, probably unexpectedly so more now than they were when I first bought them. And also I'll be throwing in just a couple of movies as well, if that's okay with you. So first up, I was getting pretty deeply into Led Zeppelin back in the day. My first purchases were Led Zeppelin I, which I considered an absolutely blistering album. That was a great debut, just so sonically incredible. I just found it just brilliant. It was so unlike anything I'd ever heard before. Really dynamic, really powerful, not overproduced. I just thought it was brilliant. And then I thought, well, I'll go out and I'll get myself Led Zeppelin II, which I also found really, really good. It was a bit more, shall I say, mellow, I thought, than the first debut album, which was all sort of warts and all, I guess. But then, after enjoying both those albums, I went out and I decided to buy myself Led Zeppelin III. Okay, so I loved the album cover. I'm a very visual person. That always catches my attention, I have to confess. I loved the fact that on the vinyl version album cover, you had the wheel that you could turn on the front cover. So anyway, on buying this, I, threw it on the CD player. Quite impressed because the first song I heard, of course, was the wonderful, short but catchy Immigrant Song. Loved that. Then I must admit I'd enjoyed Friends as well. Thought that was quite good, quite different. Celebration Day, Since I've Been Loving You. I like it, but I don't know, I have mixed feelings about Since I've Been Loving You. But anyway, those are the tracks that I loved, and of course, and also Out on the Tiles. So really, actually, even though the rest of it seems to be quite folky and acoustic and traditional music, in reality, the first six tracks actually are not, they're quite rocky. They're pretty good, I think. So I love those tracks, but then I will confess, when it went to the acoustic and folk stuff, I did feel a little bit let down and wondered why on earth I bought the album. And to be truthful with you, I listened primarily to the Immigrant Song and Out on the Tiles. I didn't really listen to anything else. So yeah, wasn't particularly fond of it at the time. But when I look at it these days and I see, those tracks on there, I think the first six are brilliant anyway. And to be honest, the acoustic tracks on there are not bad, And I think that, like, hats off to Roy Harper. I think he's brilliant. Bronny Stump, Gallows Pole, they're fantastic. They are good songs. So yes, Led Zeppelin III over the years did grow in my appreciation and estimation of the group and of the album. Okay, second one, Deep Purple. The first one I ever bought was Deep Purple in Rock, which I've covered before, and Machine Head, which I enjoyed, but I didn't think it was as good as Deep Purple in Rock, if I'm honest, and I still don't. But then another purchase I made, this was just off the cuff, was Deep Purple's Burn. So there you go, pretty old CD cover now, but I bought that and I listened to it and I thought, this sounds a bit different, not like the usual thing. And then I got to realise that actually the reason was because David Coverdale and Glenn Hughes were actually vocalists in the band. and I believe Glenn Hughes being also bass player. So I got to be honest, I took it home, I listened to it, and I wasn't keen. I've got to be honest, I wasn't. But then again, like so many things over the years, I really do appreciate it now. I think Burn, the title track in itself, is absolutely brilliant. It's just gets right to the point. It just from start to finish, it's amazing. Glenn Hughes' vocals are absolutely powerful, and they're soaring. Um, and even now, when you see him on live clips on YouTube doing live stuff, he's still got that incredible wail, and yeah, and I appreciate him for that. And I just actually do appreciate this album now, with such tracks as Might Just Take It Life, Lay Down, Stay Down, Sail Away, You Fool No One, What's Going On Here, Mistreated, and A200. So, actually, from an album I was initially disappointed with, having been treated to the luxurious Deep Purple in rock, and of course, Machine Head, going to Burn was a bit of a shock, but over time, yeah, great album actually, not bad at all. And album number 3, you either love it or you hate it, I guess. But it is the Beatles, the White Album. Now, again, it was one of those albums. I'd been buying the early stuff, enjoyed it, the usual fare, Rubber Soul, Revolver, Sergeant Pepper's, and this was the one that I hadn't got, and it wasn't particularly reasonable monetary wise for me at my point of life then to buy it. So when I was able to, I got it home and again listened to it, the 2 discs, and thought, yeah, I'm not sure. I'm really not sure about this album at all. Whether it's, I don't know. I just wasn't keen on it. But then again, over time, to be honest, I do quite like this album, and I think, if anything, um, it's just completely different. I mean, I know Sergeant Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band is different from what they did with Revolver and with Rubber Soul, but I think also for the White Album, that in itself is completely and utterly different from anything else they've done before as well, which is brilliant because I mean that's the Beatles seem to be able to do this, have this ability to um, almost completely change with each different album release and actually not do that badly out of doing that anyway. It's a task I think for any artist to come out with radically different albums in terms of sound, um, and do well. But these guys, the Beatles, managed to do that, and I applaud them for that. I think my enjoyment of this album, I mean, it's got Back in the USSR, Dear Prudence, Glass Onion. I do quite like Obladi Obladar, whether whatever people might think of that. Continuing Story, Bungalow Bill, obviously While My Guitar Gently Weeps with George Harrison. Then you got Blackbird, etc., etc., Mother Nature's Son, Revolution 9, of course. Ooh. But then, what is art? That's the thing, isn't it? What is noise and cacophony to some people, for another is art. So anyway, and then you've obviously got Good Night on it. So in terms of an album, I think it's brilliant in that it captures the Beatles at their almost rawest, because I think a lot of these tracks that when I listen to them, they don't sound anything like I had heard of the beat from the Beatles before. Really, they sounded, just completely different somehow. Less produced, even maybe, I don't know. But I find this album to be almost like the Beatles, um, are the most complete in a way, if that makes any sense, because there is such a range of different musical styles from each person in the group, um, that it feels like, as much as they're a group, their individuality shines through on this. So I do like the White Album. I like its variation. It's very varied, and I do like that about it. Um, and simply the fact that, again, it was one of those albums that they were able to completely change their style and sound, and still manage to keep um, the incredible following that they had back then, and indeed still have today. So there you go, the three albums. So very, very quickly, I'm just going to mention, in terms of movies, I think one of the ones that made a massive impact on cinema, and was certainly one of my favourites as a kid, the wonderful Enter the Dragon with Bruce Lee, of course. And because I watched this, in the end, I managed to get and watch The Big Boss, etc., and really appreciate the talent of Bruce Lee, and obviously his incredible martial arts skills. So great film, brilliant, brought him obviously to the masses. Sadly, he passed away not long after. But yeah, great film, introduced me to all of his other movies, and again, I thought they were suitably wonderful. Maybe an unsung film that you don't hear much of these days, but I think is a classic, certainly made an impact on me, is the incredibly wonderful One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, based on the novel by Ken Kesey, um, about a man called Randall P. McMurphy, who is committed to a psychiatric unit with the rather stone-faced and um, unmoving Nurse Ratched, of which the series that was on Netflix was based. Jack Nicholson plays this character wonderfully in his suitably manic way, but he's brilliant. He's brilliant as Randall P. McMurphy. And because of this film, I went out and bought the book by Ken Kesey. And I have to say, having read the book, and I know, you know, sometimes it's not very wise to see the film and then read the book, which I did. But to be honest, having read the book, I see that Jack Nicholson actually does portray the character pretty good. So it's a great film, and worth a look. But maybe I'll do some sort of reviews on those. Anywho, thank you for your time. Your continued support. Feel free to obviously leave a comment. Give me a thumbs up if you like it, and subscribe, etc., as people, tend to ask on these channels. But anyway, thanks for watching, basically, and hopefully I'll see you soon. Take care, y'all. Bye.